welcome back to Channel 1. This afternoon, we have some amazing talks lined up for you. We're going to kick things off with a talk about transforming digital government in a faraway place in Montenegro. Over the past two California administrations, Tamara, our next speaker, championed the course for priority policy initiatives and digital service and public transportation strategies for the world's fifth largest economy, California. In December 2020, a newly elected prime minister in Montenegro asked her to join his cabinet as the Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society, and Media. And Tamara built her transformation efforts on three principles: putting people first, empowering for action, and improving continuously. Here to tell us how the process unfolded, please welcome the Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society, Media from Montenegro, Tamara Strencic. Hi, Tamara.
Good morning, all.
How are you doing?
Hey, great to see you.
Properly. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And you're calling in from Montenegro today or somewhere else? I know you travel a lot.
I'm actually in Slovenia, in Montenegrin embassy in Slovenia, doing some meetings with the ministers here and government here, trying to establish collaboration with them.
Awesome. We'll take it away, and we'll be back to ask you some questions when you're done.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Thanks.
So, hello, everyone. I'm joining you today with a huge sense of gratitude and really a humility for having an opportunity to join this community today. And this has been a growing community over years and has become one of my favorite conferences that really fosters the values and attitude and energy that I am proactively trying to model and invite in my life. And that's due to the amazing leadership of Becky and Alistar and leaders that you've surrounded yourself with. And so thank you for creating this big tent for all of us and ensuring that we can connect the dots and learn from one another. So today I'm going to try to share with you some of the experiences and lessons learned, which I hope will be valuable to you. But before I jump into that, I'd like to briefly introduce myself by sharing a personal story that digs into my personal why. And so this is 16 years ago, and me and my sister, actually in 1980, a little bit before 16 years ago. But my story starts 16 years ago when a war destroyed Kosovo in 1999. Some of you might remember. Thousands of people were killed and hundreds of thousands of refugees fled to neighboring countries. Many of them arrived in my home country, Montenegro, overcrowding my little town, Ulcinj, at the Adriatic coast. It was filled with throngs of desperate people looking for help. For them, everyday comforts that were taken for granted, like safe place to sleep, consistent sources of food, and warm clothes, were dire issues. And so we organized a group of students that worked with the city to donate food and shelter, despite very limited resources. And during their time of need, we wanted to provide comfort and hope. And this drawing by a 10-year-old Kosovar girl was given to me and my sister to say thank you. And to this day, this girl's drawing reminds me that when community comes together to solve problems, everything is possible. Community collaboration, empathy for others, and human-centered approaches to solving problems have been at the core of my work all my life. So for the past 17 years, I've had the privilege to serve in a social good and public sector at the local and central level in Europe and the United States. And from the beginning of my public service days, my obsession kind of was to bring principles, tools, and practices from private sector to improving how government delivers its policies and services around the needs of the people we serve. And the story that most of you are familiar with, that also was a catalyst to me and many of us probably there, which I had opportunity to study closely, was the failure of healthcare.gov, when a small team within the White House has changed how federal government designs and delivers services to the people while changing the practices and the culture of government. At the time, I was serving at the government of California, and we were the third state in the nation that has launched the Open Data Initiative, which was the catalyst to rethinking how we leverage data and engage people to solve some of the stickiest challenges in the government of California. But open data was just a catalyst and the tip of a spear to changing the culture and how government works. And we did not stop there, riding at the coattails of UK and US digital services teams and what they have done. In 2017, we founded our Office of Innovation with the goal to train public servants to leverage data design and delivery to drive meaningful change to Californians. So we trained public servants on product, agile, human-centered design, service design, and created a runway where they were solving some of the most pressing challenges by using these new skills. And these are some of the photos from those times. And then in 2019, once we got dedicated budget, we launched Office of Digital Innovation, a small digital service team charged with redesigning some of the Californians' priority digital services and helping people get what they needed from the state government. These were some of the most rewarding days of my life, serving as a public servant in California state government. And through these engagements over the past 6 years, I was also able to support my country and do some exchanges. And then exactly around this time last year, I got a phone call from a new prime minister of Montenegro to come back to my home country and serve my people as a part of the brand new government of Montenegro. And this was the government that was formed after 30 years of the same party rule. And this came about as a result of 3 minority parties that won the election last August. And this was a truly historical moment for Montenegro. The new prime minister with the coalition party leaders decided that the new government would be made of all experts and not politicians, who would use their expertise to drive public policies and good practices and bring about positive change for the people of Montenegro. Not sure how many of you have gone to Montenegro. I'd love to invite you all at some point. But Montenegro is beautiful. The people are united by a strong and independent spirit. It's also a traditional society with a bureaucracy entrenched by these 30 years of one-party rule, with an area of around 14,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of Northern Ireland, and a population around actually only 500,000 people. Montenegro is one of Europe's smallest countries. Our GDPs in 2020 was about 4 million, and GDP per capita was about 7,000. The disparities between really rich and really poor are huge, and young people have been massively leaving the country, looking for stability and investing their personal growth. But with the government of new leaders, my colleagues, and many of us like myself who left the country a while back and then returned, right now is a rare opportunity to improve citizen services in a way that may really help promote shared values in Western Balkans and Europe. So last December, when I started, I remember writing these 3 sentences down. My mission was to rebuild trust and make government work for the people, because the trust was largely broken. Deliver better policies and services to people in Montenegro while instilling practices of delivery-driven modern 21st century government, and intentionally build a culture of diversity, equity, openness, inclusion, and empathy. And our mandate and scope is really huge. I'm in charge of 2 ministries that are horizontal: public administration and digital transformation, and focusing on the fabric of how government operates, the policy, strategy, governance, processes, really the machinery of government layers, process and culture layers, and then also the Ministry of Media, which is grounded in some of the same democratic principles, which is a vertical ministry. And here are some of the main strategic goals and pillars that we are focusing on this year. So the mission of the Ministry of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media is to become a center of gravity for digital service design skills and leadership development inside of Montenegro government. But it's the people who are the center of government. And so we have partnered with ministries to introduce new practices, processes, and methods of designing, delivering, and operating programs and services that meet people's needs from the start. And it is not just the tools and processes as much as it is about the culture we are building and practices we are cultivating, because every day really culture is eating strategy for lunch. So we are paying very big attention to the culture that we are building. And the Ministry of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media, we believe that we are all designers of the service experience. And we are bringing new practices, principles for private industry so that we could deliver services centered around people's needs in a most open, inclusive, agile, and effective manner. We are creating conditions of innovation and models that support and enable new methods of problem-solving approaches that deliver better value and outcomes for people. This is, I like to take selfies with my team, and this is one of my core teams here. Those conditions include teams that are multidisciplinary, open, collaborative, employees who are enabled and empowered to try new things, leaders who model servant leadership, celebrate real-world iteration and perpetual learning. And so we are empowering leaders and building strong multidisciplinary teams who share mission and and are really empowered to identify challenges and co-design solutions with those impacted by those challenges. So I'd like to just dig a little bit deeper and kind of talk about some of the lessons learned I've taken from my previous chapters to Montenegro. One being designing people-centered services and policies, really by leveraging data, design, and delivery to ensure that our services and policies are meeting the needs of people they're intended to serve. Second being transforming processes and practices, really thinking about not just technology, it's not just about technology, and it's not about the what, it's about the how, and it's about creating a culture of learning, always listening, testing, and iterating. And then the third one being empowering the leaders, catalyzing with empathy. And I'll go into the first one, designing people-centered services and policies. And so here is where we are looking at culture and how we work. There's too much focus, whether the governments are big and small, there's always too much focus on processes, requirements, compliance, and liabilities, rather than the outcome, data, learning, and opportunities. And so policies and services are way too often designed around the program's needs rather than the needs of the people we serve. Programs and policymakers often aren't equipped to envision and deliver better policies and services and don't have adequate tools, standards, and talent they need to build them. So this is what we are focusing on in the government of Montenegro. So with a small team, we've so I'm going to go back to what I've done previously in California, which was a huge inspiration with what I'm doing in Montenegro. We've put together a small team that in 4 days stood up a COVID-19 website. And also that team really established some of the core disciplines of product, research, data insights, and we're trying to mimic that in Montenegro as well. So the Montenegro coronavirus website also was stood up really based on this experience in California. And the goal of it was to provide accurate, up-to-date, actionable information to all people in Montenegro so that they feel safe, informed, and they're able to complete and adhere to any directives made by Montenegro government. The website was going through various iterations since it was launched, and as we were constantly listening to our users, iterating on the content, infrastructure, and design. And we really relied on California State crisis standard, which we kind of co-designed with our friends in UK. And some of the pillars here is that content is simple, clear, and actionable. Our response is accessible. We need to provide a joined up experience for users and respond to what users need and iterate rapidly. And this is open sourced as well. As we did panel interviews and user research with individuals and industry owners, we found out many questions and points of confusion, which also helped us shape better COVID-19 policies and guidance documents, which was an added bonus. So we didn't just iterate on the actual digital service, but also on these measures and guidance documents. We didn't stop here. Building on this website was a great catalyst to attract great talent from public sector to government. So even through our funding was very limited, we were able to leverage this talent and using this standard. So we moved forward with our colleagues from civic tech sector, and we redesigned Montenegro's government website, which was previously one of the most busiest, messiest, least accessible websites, really designed around the needs of the government and not around the needs of the people. So then we were really thinking through and identified the top services that people were looking at the website and designed it around those services. The website is optimized for performance, readability, and accessibility, and it is translated in 3 languages that are used in Montenegro. It is also made accessible to hearing and visually impaired and has a superior search engine. And the best thing about designing the site was exposing public servants in a ministry to this disciplines of user research and service design, content design, the folks who have been excellent bureaucracy hackers and whom for the first time in their lives, they've got a chance to do some panel interviews and do content design. This was a great opportunity to learn and start to apply these skills. So this is really an experience into not just how might we use these disciplines into how we create better digital services, but I'm sure most of you have run into this quote by a fierce lady, Cecilia Munoz, that starting users isn't just how we should be making tech, it's about how we should be making government. So this was sort of our North Star. And building internal capacity to deliver better services wasn't just about our digital frontier, it was about a broader government transformation and the way we serve people through the levers of policies, processes, and services. And this was our way to test out the new practices and culture within government. So the problem of implementation gap, which Jen Palka always really talks about, that is the most common challenge which I have observed across all governments in the world. Many of the policies simply do not live up to their intent and are simply not effective. And policy making all around the world has been in quite crisis, while there are meaningful differences of opinion in any government about which policies will result in a kind of a society we want. It's also true that many of the policies that result from our democratic processes simply do not live to that intent. So one of the analogies of Jen Palka, which resonated with me a lot, she talks about it's like a car where a steering wheel is only loosely connected to the wheels, and we might fight over who is in the driver's seat, but regardless of who's driving, you're not going to get where you're meant to go, and you're going to hurt people along the way. So this year we are passing 10 policies, and we have 30 lawyers in our team working on these policies. So we launched a small policy design lab that empowered these policymakers on how to focus policy on the constituent needs. We made sure this process is open and inclusive and has internal and external stakeholders who are really touching and interacting with these policies. And the goal is to engage stakeholders through the entire life cycle of policy design and implementation process. So in our lab, teams started small and iterated progressively on both the policy and delivery together. They also built instrumented delivery systems that provide near real-time feedback, created mechanisms for experimentation that inform policy development with the knowledge of what's actually working towards the original intent. So this is really what is also describing some of our culture here. We're a culture of planners and not the learners, which we're trying to also shift. And so one of our really opportunities to really apply policy design is freedom of access to information, FOIA policy, which we are passing this year. And we did journey mapping. We journey mapped the employee experience, and we laid out the system and processes constraints and pain points that got in the way to promptly addressing FOIA requests. So we didn't only calibrate the actual policy around the needs of the people that it's serving, but also we've established internal governance and we eliminated internal barriers that we found. So now as a result, with the air cover of the Prime Minister, we are strengthening the teams within each ministry who do FOIA requests. So this is an exercise into not just setting the policy right, but immediately thinking through how it's going to be implemented and creating that capacity internally, eliminating all process and bureaucracy blockers that we found. So I'll move into the next one, transforming the processes and practices. It's not about the what, it's not about the tech really, though when they look at our ministry, they're thinking of digital, and by really applying these disciplines on how we might build better policies and processes, we are showing otherwise. So public servants around the world are navigating and hacking through institutional barriers, calcified processes and challenges that have been deeply entrenched into the DNA of how government operates and have defined our status quo for way too long. So I'll give you another example. Just actually last month, child allowance use case. In order to reduce the poverty rate provide support to young children, especially during the crisis caused by the pandemic. The government of Montenegro introduced the right to child allowance for children of age 1 to 6. As you see here, there were the long lines of folks waiting. And we had really like just a few week window to move the process along because the policy was really the bottleneck. And so with the tight implementation deadline, we were trying to figure out how do we reduce the lines. And we did some guerrilla research while many were expecting of us to deliver an app. We were really focusing on the how piece. How do we streamline this process to get the benefits to these families? And so we went through the process and really trying to understand the experience of the people waiting in line. And we are trying to bring home the message that it's not about the tech, it's about humans, it's about unpeeling the onion to get to the root of the problem and tightly defining the problem. And we realized that people were stuck. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the previous slides on the 3 specific questions, which we then redesigned, and we've cut the time. We cut the time to a half, and people didn't have to go home to get the additional information. We updated the website with more clear information, and also did some business process reengineering, had some folks approaching the folks who are waiting in line, and provided guidance. And so once we piloted that on a few shelters, we actually got feedback, and then we scaled it across the entire country. And this is how we were able to overcome the challenge. And it wasn't the tech solution, it was the actual business process and reengineering and simplification of the kind of content that we had on our website. It's not about the tech always, it's about humans, and it's about unpeeling the onion to get to the root of the problem, really tightly defining the problem. And this was an opportunity to really train our public servants into tightly defining the problem, as well as doing some journey mapping. So here's another example where we leveraged some of this service design methodologies to streamlining a process. There was another huge bottleneck for our government. Even though Montenegro government has a pretty advanced digital platforms that help promote and coordinate hiring processes, we were experiencing the process problem. So one of the areas that we were challenged by, that we were trying to solve, is we were getting a lot of not really great quality candidates into our governmental service. And because of the reliance on subjective self-assessment, the government often, our government had trouble weeding out unqualified candidates and quickly finding those who are qualified. And because of the complicated hiring processes we had in place, people who were not qualified were essentially blocking the people who were qualified from getting visibility. So we mapped out the pain points and bottlenecks in our hiring process, as well as the opportunities, which helped us reimagine some parts of the process. We also talked to some folks from USDS who've done this at the federal level, and this was also the way they streamlined their hiring pipeline. So the new process involved job analysis workshop with SMEs, and then posting of the attractive job positions. And so we finally came up with a streamlined process that you can see illustrated here. Another example where we really were looking at creating a more agile workforce and getting the right people at the right places, as our Prime Minister likes to say, is another tool that we forked from a federal government in the United States, which we also utilized in California state government, is an open source tool called Open Opportunities, which if you find valuable, you can fork and use, whether you are a member of government or an NGO. It is essentially an internal LinkedIn, which allows for any ministry to advertise the projects and specific skill sets they're looking, but also on the other side, folks who work in government can post their bios, and then as well as their skill sets, which they don't traditionally use at their workplace. Like I've hardly ever used graphic design or photography, but in testing this tool, I've posted those, and so then I was able to apply for a project that required these skill sets. And so this is a way we are really creating efficiencies in Montenegro state, in Montenegro country's government, and doing some matchmaking, as well as really creating opportunity for professional development, where our public servants across the country are able to sharpen these skills which they haven't used for a while. And the third one around empowering leaders and catalyzing with empathy. So wanted to emphasize here that becoming digital is a cultural, not just operational shift. And we see really it's about how we approach solving problems. So we, through these workshops and trainings, we are training our public servants to use how might we approach, to develop hypotheses, research with people we serve, design a prototype based on what we've discovered about them, and build something that addresses their identified needs. It's about what we value, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It's how we work together on small, empowered, multidisciplinary teams who continuously experiment, design, build, and test and operate. And it's about what drives our decisions, data and feedback. And so we are trying to improve all these levers. First, sort of using our ministry as guinea pigs, and then also identify a few other ministries that are being trained along the folks from my colleagues, and are going to quickly scale it across the entire government. We need to shift culture and how we work from close to open planning to learning and iterating, baselining requirements on assumptions to research insights and problem definition, managing massive contracts to laser focusing on driving results and outcomes, and continuously improving the service, and de-risking through modular and smaller procurement. So these are some of the investments we're making right now, moving from waterfall to modular procurement, and really changing the culture to another example that I would like to kind of mention here is that we put out there to really change the culture and to drive the buy-in and air cover, both from the top and also from those who are serving our constituents, is by putting together an empathy challenge. So we asked our leaders to pick, as well as the folks who are working in really the direct line with the customers and the people we serve, to pick a policy, program, or service, to go out there, experience it, to understand what's its impact, and to really try to figure out, does it address people's needs? And we've created a toolkit for them that they could use, some of the research and mapping tools that were simple tools that they could use. And then we asked them to tell a story. What needs, challenges, and opportunities have they identified, and how they would address these challenges and opportunities. So by doing this, we really have put the ministers really in the shoes of those people we are serving. And often that has changed the game, because they were able to move forward things that they otherwise wouldn't. But just by going out there in a field, they were actually realizing how important it is. And so the empathy challenge was, it's still going, but so far a huge success and a catalyst to getting a buy-in both from the top and the bottom. I've already talked about some investments that we are doing in terms of training the teams in our ministry, but we are trying to scale it across the government by putting out a digital academy, and we are doing this in collaboration with our colleagues from Canada and United States and UK. So we are creating an open curriculum for principles and practices, and investing in apprenticeship style skill building in critical areas. And I'm not going to read them here. We are co-creating a roadmap for departments partners that set measurable goals for progressing on the maturity model while delivering better services, and certifying department managers and staff in curriculum while delivering improved services, so they'll get certification once they pass this academy, as well as a runway where they can really apply it on specific projects in their ministries, so those skills can actually be sticky. And so this is an example of pre-COVID times, where I brought a team from California to actually apply the curriculum we used in the Office of Innovation. Some of that curriculum will also be piloted online coming up in a month. And I'm also interested, we're also interested in looking at any curriculums that you're using that you think we might find valuable. So later on in the chat, if you have something to share, I'd love to connect with you. So here are some of the skills which we're kind of prioritizing, and some of the skills that we will be featured in our curriculum: research and problem definition, service assessment, and applying the service standard, design, but also we'll also feature some soft, or how I like to call power skills, around how we lead multifunctional teams, conflict management, how we might acutely really be aware and calibrate our superpowers. So a lot of it will be around culture and mindset. I find this to be true in all governments, but really finding a great talent both within and then attracting a great talent from outside is a challenge, especially for our government that has a pretty small budget. So what we essentially did is we copied Innovation Fellows and Entrepreneurs in Residence program, which federal government has done, really recruiting the brightest minds from the private industry. And in this sense, we are also pitching to companies to allow their employees to go on a sabbatical, really selling them on a mission, and then having them join us in a tour of duty. This has worked really well in Montenegro, and was a really interesting proposal to some of the private industries here who traditionally didn't work in collaboration, this type of collaboration with governments. But we are launching Montenegro Digital Corps, again leaning on some of the great practices from United States and United States Digital Corps program. We are leveraging some of highly visible leaders. Like I'm not sure if you recognize Vlade Divac. He's a basketball player from our region, and then Mikey Dickerson, who was the administrator of USDS. And so the two of them are helping us make the pitch, and then later on, we're going to, in phases, invite some other reputable leaders from around the world to help us make a pitch, to invite mid-career leaders from across the world to either join us remotely as advisors or come to Montenegro and help us solve the most stickiest challenges. So I'm going to ask Alistar if he can play the video right now, because it's about that time.
Hey everyone, you might have heard of my country, Montenegro, a small hidden jewel in the middle of the Mediterranean known for its wild beauty. Montenegro is facing a challenging but historical moment of transition. We have a new government of passionate leaders who are dedicated to delivering better services to the people of Montenegro. We lead with determination, empathy, courage, and ambition to catalyze Montenegro's potential and make this country as prosperous as it is beautiful. I'm a Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media, and my team and I are launching a call for leaders around the world who want to connect with us and help my country prosper. Our vision for government that works for everyone is powered by the people who believe in it. By working alongside my team and other public servants of Montenegro, it will help us build better tools for people while solving most meaningful challenges. We are changing the culture of government of Montenegro to think about the voice of the user and produce products and services that make our government work better. We are looking for people-centered problem solvers, technologists, advocates, communicologists, and organizers from different backgrounds and communities around the country and the world.
I've lived around the world and always keep coming to Montenegro. It's the country where mine and my wife's roots came from. Beside the fact that we see this country as our home, my wife, kids, and I keep coming back to Montenegro to get away from the noise, soak up the sun, be present, and enjoy and recharge. It's a country of wild beauty and great potential. The greatest value of this country is the people, empathetic, passionate, creative, persistent, and courageous. It can be transformed only if we empower talented young leaders in Montenegro and outside Montenegro to help solve meaningful problems. There is a wave of good change coming. I'm calling out to all talented people out there, whether you're from Montenegro or fellow Balkan, or anyone who is interested in helping Montenegro and Tamara, raise your hand.
I'm Mikey Dickerson. You may remember me from such projects as the U.S. Digital Service, Vote With Me, or various other misadventures. I've been privileged to spend some time in Montenegro at the invitation of Tamara, Minister of Digital Society in Montenegro. The country is beautiful, people are united by a strong and independent spirit. Right now is a rare opportunity to improve citizen services in a way that may really help promote shared values in the Western Balkans. President Barack Obama always talked about how important it is for young people to resist the temptation to be cynical about government, which is enabling bad leaders and strong men around the world. Well, a major driver of that cynicism is the terrible bureaucratic experience that most of us expect when we go to the government for a driver's license, or unemployment benefits, or just to pay taxes. I believe it's the same in Montenegro as well. The best thing we can do to reverse this trend as people in technology is to improve these services, give people a better experience, and show them that working together with common values, expressed through a democratic government, makes life better. If you are a technologist, engineer, designer, or product manager that has ties to this region or is otherwise up for a big challenge, then Tamara's invitation is open to you too.
So come join the team that is changing culture and solving real problems and services that people of Montenegro can be proud of. We need you. Let's help people of Montenegro and transform this country together.
Thank you so much. So that's the pitch. So if any of you out there are interested in helping Montenegro, you can also join remotely. I hope that my talk was valuable. There's many different levers which you're using, but I chose to share these ones. I'm happy to jump in a chat and then answer any questions you have. And I'd love to connect with you if you have any useful things to share with us.
Hey, Tamara. So first of all, I know you said I'd love to come hang out with you in Montenegro. We can talk analytics and all kinds of stuff. Although I know you told me I have to bring Rebecca with me when I come. Amazing pitch, and it's great to see the Code for movement spreading around the world as it has done in Code for Canada and Code for America. Thank you so much for giving us this view of the transformation you've gone through. I know it's a huge uphill effort, but at the same time, there's this concept in economics called path dependency, where the U.S. had a very hard time getting onto chip and PIN codes because the signature-based credit card model was so widespread. Whereas, for example, Africa was able to adopt mobile phone technology very quickly because it didn't have wired phone infrastructure. And so I guess there's a silver lining there. You have the ability to reinvent things because you have less of a legacy on which to comply or continue. Has that made it a little easier for you to affect change?
Absolutely. I mean, definitely kind of similarly to Estonia. I think we rolled this bit of our horizon. We are doing analysis to understand. This is something that Mikey also said, who came. He said there is many things you need to kill and figure out what you're going to focus on. So we have an ability to start with a kind of blank slate. And so we are leveraging some of the best practices from other countries who are in a similar digital maturity stage as ours to really kind of prioritize the most important things right now. So
fantastic. And thank you so much for making this as international as it can be. I love the fact that we've got Montenegro and Mongolia and New Zealand and Taiwan and Kenya and Rwanda. It really does feel like an international gathering of people who are trying to use tech to make the world better. So for those of you here on Channel 1, head on over to Q&A on Wonder, and you can hang out with Tamara. You'll be there, Tamara, to say hi to people if they have questions. Just hit the link on the left-hand side. Thank you, Tamara. It's great to see you again.